Good morning, everybody. It's 6 a.m. and I'm super excited to be here for you this morning. But I can't even speak. We are going to chat about a couple things that I think are critical for you to think about as an entrepreneur to be able to access the freedom that I think every entrepreneur wants to access. So as my clothes are falling off this morning, I'm going to pull them back up and let's jump right into it. So good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. There's a bunch of people jumping on early this morning. Thank you. Let's set the day off right. So first and foremost, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, we work so hard to be able to create the results that we want in life. But yet there's these, I think, fundamental principles that I just reheard again when I actually went to church on Sunday, believe it or not. So I'm not going to get all religious on you, so don't worry about that. But I think that sometimes there's some fundamental things in scripture that really just kind of hit me up against the head and go, wow, that's so amazing, because that's been something that I've learned as an entrepreneur to be able to get myself to a place of freedom. So first of all, grab a paper and pen and then just write this down and then test this theory throughout the next, let's just say, 14 days. So hi, Kate. Hi, Judy. Nice to see you this morning. Hi, Pamela. Hi, Mandy. Good morning. Jennifer Schultz, Jamie Bogan, Joanna Wright, Carrie. Good morning, you guys. Fantastic for being up this morning. So what I want to feel from you this morning or see from you this morning is I want to see some engagement back and forth. So if you're live right now, then I want you to comment and tell me what's happening on the 3 steps that I go through in your life, so that the people who are watching live right now and the people who watch the replay later can actually, first of all, not feel alone in their steps and be encouraged by our progress. So there's 3 things that really I believe that every entrepreneur, business owner needs to understand to be able to access freedom, because we stop and we quit way too early. And we think that we don't. We think we logically make our decisions to be able to move into another direction, sometimes buy another product. There's this conversation that I need to be able to get to the next level. So I'm sitting in church last Sunday, and there was a guest minister, and he was great. And I just want to share these 3 things that he shared that actually made me go, oh my God, that's so what I realized as an entrepreneur, and I don't think I've ever really broke it down like this for people. So it gave me an idea to share this with you. So it's okay if you're not religious. It's okay if you're, you have to be spiritual. You at least have to be spiritual to understand this and to be able to grab root with this. Okay, so first thing is the series that the church is in is called the stretch series. So you're stretching, right? And the pastor said, the definition of stretch is basically to go, and I'm paraphrasing now, to go as far as you can beyond your limits without tearing. And he talked about 4 steps, but there were 3 that really, really stood out to me. The first one was expect that there will be some tests. Now we know this, right? Like most of us know this. We know that there's some tests that are going to come up before the thing that we want comes forward. But yet when we're in the tests, we're often retracting, getting angry, or in this, I need something else. I need more structure. We're in this conversation, and we don't even realize we're in this conversation because we're so right about the conversation. And because we're so right about the conversation, can you feel me? Anybody in this moment right now where you're in this conversation that you're so right that you need something else, or that, you don't have something within your space or yourself to be able to get through a challenge right now. And you're coming up against a test, and if you drop into this conversation that you need something else, then you don't pass the test. You don't pass the test. I know this without a doubt. I told this story not too long ago that I had this whole conversation around when I was learning webinars that I wasn't a webinar girl. And I hired all these people to teach me webinars. And when I finally went back and I realized the very first webinar that I ever did was the one that had the highest conversions. And nobody taught me how to do a webinar. I had just done it with pure passion and laid it out the way I thought I needed to lay it out. Now, I've been taught many variations of webinars now, and I am influenced by really some of the best webinar designers in the world. And if I do it 100% like them, and I don't put my style on it, and I don't put my tweaks on it, it doesn't convert the same way. So you're never, ever going to get away from having to pass the test. Nobody's going to fix it for you. I'm not going to run in on a wild, white, beautiful horse or some man for you ladies and be able to solve all your problems. There's no coach on the effing planet that is going to do that. You have to buckle up and pass the test. So here's what the minister said. He said, if it can't be tested, it can't be trusted. And what that means to me is that money is not going to be given to you unless you can sit down and pass the test. Freedom does not come to people who have tons of money. In fact, the more money you have, the more chaotic you are. And if you don't trust now, you're going to really have trust issues when money comes into your life, because money just magnifies everything. It magnifies everything. And so in order for you to really pass the test, you have to pass the emotional test, which is a huge one. And then when you pass the emotional test, then what happens is you get intimate with whatever you're working on, and you will pass the test and you'll move to the next level. It is critical because the test is there to actually skill you up for the next level. So the thing you want on the other side of the test, the thing you really want, can't come in unless you demonstrate responsibility to be able to bring it in. So now just take a moment and ask yourself, where are you giving up responsibility right now? That you think that somebody else needs to do it for you, provide it for you, or you need to go find something else to be able to fix something in your life, to be able to have something you want. So just an honesty moment. Where are you giving up your power and giving up responsibility and standing in a place that I still need something to be able to create a result? I have a group called Pace Club. And in Pace Club, I say this to them at the beginning of the year. And I say, every year, there's a group of people who go wildly sideways. They get angry, they get frustrated, they go berserk, right? And it's like massive control issues coming up. And they fight, and they fight, and they fight. And this is not new for them. This is how they show up when they get backed up against the wall. Then there's going to be another group who's going to sit back and go, I feel like I need more support. Meanwhile, we don't even stop them from getting as many coaching calls as they want. They have a certain amount in their program. They got 12 once a month. But we don't even stop them from getting as many as they need, because we're committed to them getting the result. But they'll still sit there and go, I need more support. No, you don't. It's sitting there. Like, break up the conversation, you guys. We have to break up the conversation inside of our head that says we need something else. We need to stop and break it up. Otherwise, we're never going to pass the test. The third group is the group that consumes everything, does it even though they're afraid. And then you see them on the Facebook wall sharing things like, I got text messages right now sharing things like, I've made, $60,000 in a week. We just did a tweak on one of our clients over the weekend, and she's done $178,000 in 2 weekends. 2 weekends, she's done $178,000. Okay, so I was going to find it for you. But, you got people in my Pace Club doing $150,000 in a month that were living in an RV park when you live in a house and have a husband that loves you, where this person doesn't have that. You know what I mean? Like, my point is that you have to stop saying things like, I need something else to be able to succeed. You need to take opportunities when they're in front of you and run with them and stay intimate with them and do what it takes to pass the test. Because if it can't be tested, it can't be trusted. Would you leave your 2-year-old child with someone who always forgot to, always forgot to show up on time, that was always showing up late, or, couldn't dress themselves and needed somebody else to dress them? I'm being a little bit dramatic here, but I wouldn't leave my 3-year-old son with anybody I thought was irresponsible. Why do you think that, the heavens are going to open up and give you the thing that you're praying for if you can't pass the test? Second thing is that expect you're going to leave some people behind. This is a really hard one. There are people that I miss in my life that were really good friends for a really long time, but it's like I can't hang with them anymore. And the reason, like, I could visit them, I could say hi, you know what I mean? Like, I could, have coffee with them, but I don't have anything in common with them anymore to spend day in and day out with them anymore. Because when I talk to them or when we're hanging out, they're in a conversation that is a much smaller world conversation than I'm in these days. And this isn't a horrible thing. If you want to dive into scripture and look in scripture, there's a lot of stories where people are being tested, and as they're being tested, they're having to leave people behind to be able to go to the next level. And so a good distinction on this is to realize that sometimes the people who are closest to you tell you that you've done enough and to hold back. And they don't have the same calling on their life that you have. And so it's really, I think, one of the ways that I grew really fast in my company is I put blinders on, and I only listened to my coach, and I only went to my coach's events. And I just put the blinders on so that I wasn't consuming all these random products out there, because it's very, very distracting to growing a business, to hearing everybody's point of view, because you think you need everybody's stuff, right? And so what I realized when I went out to the marketplace is my products help all the rest of the products succeed. If you don't have a big audience and you don't know how to sell to the audience and you don't create reoccurring income, then everything else doesn't work as well. It just doesn't work as well. So I put the cash back in people's bank accounts so that they can afford to buy team or invest in team, and they can afford to settle down and focus on one thing at a time to grow their business. So if they buy information products, I actually introduce information products and other trainers to my clients when they get to Marketing Mastery, which is their second-year program, so that they know how to bolt on at the right time to grow their business. So I'm not afraid of other people working with other people. I just know that if they don't master what I have in my PACE Club, then what's going to happen is they're not going to have the foundation. You don't have the foundation, you can't grow the empire, right? So when you look at all of this, sometimes you're going to have to leave people behind. You actually should expect it. Has anybody left anybody behind yet? There was someone that you really loved and really cared about, but maybe they complain still a lot, or when you talk to them, they encourage you to pull back versus push forward. So that's like the type of conversation you have to leave behind. So I'm not saying cut people out of your life. I'm not saying be judgmental. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that you have to guard your mind on who you spend your time with. This is why masterminds are so critical. It's so critical for you to come to your masterminds. When we look at our client base, I'm just speaking about ours, but you can look at whoever group you study in. When you look at your client base, when we look at our masterminds, people could be struggling and struggling and struggling and then come to a mastermind and all of a sudden sell $50,000 in a week. And they've never sold before ever. And so the crazy things happen when we connect in community. And so, but you got to look, because your deep conversation in your head will have you get to a certain level and then start pulling back. And I don't care who you are. We all have that. And that's why we need a community around us to pull us forward. That's critical. So look at who you're spending your time with, because that's part of your community, and realize that maybe you need to be selective about who you spend more time with and who you share your visions and ideas with. Share your visions and your ideas, unless you're super strong. I share my visions and my ideas with everyone, but I'm now at a point where, if you tell me I'm crazy, it's actually going to motivate me more, because I'm so deeply connected to my faith that I feel like the calling on my life is huge. Right? Do you have that with your life? Do you feel like the calling on your life is huge? Then don't share that calling until you're strong enough with people that don't have a huge calling. The third thing I just want to share is, if you have a child that has a high calling on their life and you see them harvesting their field, they're working really hard, and you're feeling like, oh my God, they need to be at home with me. Please don't be that small thinker that holds them back. There's a client that I just helped. She's actually not even a client of mine anymore. She worked with me, I think, for four or 5 years. And she went off and, she couldn't hear me anymore. And I said to her, you can't hear me anymore. You need to go somewhere else. And she did. She went somewhere else. And unfortunately, she did not get great advice. And sometimes sometimes you need to see if the grass is greener on the other side to be able to hear again. You know what I mean? And so, I've been thinking about her for the last few weeks, and I've been talking back and forth with her on text messaging. And sure enough, she's doing her first, 4-day event. She's never even done a 3-day event. And, it's just, she didn't have good coaching, and she was going to be in a bad situation, not to mention she couldn't pay her rent anymore. And so I supported her, and in a day she did, I think it was like $3,000 or $4,000 in a day, and she put 5 more people in her event in one day. And she's on path to, she'll probably put, if she keeps it up, like if I was coaching her every day, she'd keep it up. But if she keeps it up, she'll end up with probably about 100 to 120 people in her event at the end of the month, where she was slating to have maybe 30 people at her event, period. And so my point in sharing that with you is that, look for your tests. Make sure that you take in the coaching, you have a good coach that's really strong and has a strong community to help you get to where you want to be. Because often what happens is we have something very powerful in front of us and we don't utilize it because we're deeply rooted in this conversation that I need more or I need something else, and you're not using what you have. So Mary Morrissey said something years ago that I've never, ever forgotten. And she said, the resources are all in your space, and people don't utilize what's in their space, and they're always out there looking for more. And as long as you have that mentality, you're never going to utilize or even be grateful for what's in your space, so then the empire doesn't stack. So the last and final thing is that have faith. And so the minister said, you have to have faith that God will provide. So I don't know what your belief system is, but I believe there is a God. And the more I get into scripture, the more I believe. And so if you want to look it up in Hebrews 11, there is a list of all the different things that you must have faith in and that demonstrate faith and ways that you can demonstrate faith. And I believe that my business has definitely had me demonstrate faith. And when I look back in scripture, I see how my business and the way I teach has actually all been on scripture belief systems without me even knowing. So it's so ironic how God produces in ways that like we don't even recognize. So before I was ever in scripture, I always had this calling to be in spirituality. Have you had that? Like I read A Course in Miracles, I used to go to shamans, I used to go to psychics, and now I don't do any of those things. And I really just go to scripture for all of the things that feed me. But with that being said, I feel like all those things were gateway drugs for me to get hooked on my faith in a deep level. So there's things in scripture that I never would have agreed with when I was just reading spiritual context. By the way, this isn't about scripture and spirituality. I think it's all great. But I'm just really a big believer in understanding the full scripture, because when you understand the full scripture, some of the judgments that I had in the spiritual realm, I don't have anymore. And now I can actually combine both sides of me so that I feel whole and my business rocks. Right? Instead of the law of attraction without it being grounded in other rules. So let me just give you a piece. Scripture actually says that you don't have to read scripture. That's an aha moment, right? Like it says, it actually is the first thing that tells you that the preachers can be, and the church can be some of the most toxic places. It actually says that in scripture. And so I know that as a spiritual person, I often, when I was reading A Course in Miracles, had a judgment about, reading scripture. First of all, I couldn't even get into scripture because of the fact that all of the things like in the Catholic Church and the pedophiles and, the judgment that I would hear that would go to church. And I'm going to tell you that there's churches out there that don't have judgment and that really welcome people who are gay, people who are, sinning, people who are spiritual, not religious. There are actually churches out there that you can study the scripture who welcome all of that, because at the end of the day, Jesus welcomed all of that. So again, I'm not trying to get religious. I'm just trying to encourage you to really deeply, I think it is so hard to make it as an entrepreneur if you don't have deep faith. And I think that who you study from is so important. I think it's so important. And you can't just go to church on Sundays and expect that life is just going to work. You have to practice the principles on a daily basis. And they are very entrepreneurial principles. I read a book not too long ago, which was all about how God was the first entrepreneur. And I really believe that if you have a calling to be an entrepreneur, you really have to understand, not just the laws of the universe, but actual scripture, and understand, how to deepen your faith and your walk with God. Because if you do that, you're going to find that the moments that you want to quit or that you think you need more is very unbiblical. You don't need more. You just don't. It's already within you. So you have to utilize what has been delivered in front of you. You have to stop fearing making the wrong decision. You have to stop hiding behind, your children and behind God. There is nothing more challenging than when I have somebody sitting in front of me who is spiritual, whether it's religious or spiritual, that comes to me and says, you know what? I know I need to do this, but I'm going to go and I'm going to sit and pray and meditate. And I'm like, you've been praying for this. That's why it's in front of you. Stop hesitating. Stop hesitating before you make a move. Stop holding back. We have free will. We can stop a miracle from happening in our life. We can stop it. And we stop it by not taking action. So be willing to take action on the things that are delivered in your life. And I'm just going to paraphrase everything I talked about today and end Coffee with Shanda on this. The first thing is expect that there will be some tests. If they don't test this microphone I'm speaking on or this computer that I'm speaking on, then they won't put it out to market, right? We don't want to buy an iPhone that hasn't been tested. We don't want to buy a car and put our children in it that have not been tested. If it cannot be tested, it cannot be trusted. The second thing is that you have to expect that you are going to leave some people behind. You have to expect that. It is going to happen, and so you're going to have to get okay with that and then know when you need to stop having a conversation with someone who is holding you back, or having a conversation with someone who is complaining, because you will fail if you complain. I say this in Pace Club all the time. You will fail if you complain. There's a difference between complaining and a difference for asking for coaching. And the third thing is deepen your faith to know that it is going to work out. If you don't stop, it is going to work out. So complete what you start, and it is going to work out. So that's it. That's all I have for you today. Please, if this morning coffee show made a difference for you, would you please just take a moment and share it? Share it and post a note on what your takeaway was so that people understand what you saw in this morning show, that they could possibly glean out of it. Because whatever you saw is something somebody else needs to understand, that positioning, so that they can consume what I just shared and succeed. So please share this. It really does tell me if you appreciated today's Coffee with Shanda. And if you did, then it allows and it influences me to give in a different way and give more in this way to be able to provide you with what you need. All right, you guys, I'll talk to you soon. Good morning. Have a great day.